Hello there. Good morning, Floralpreneurs. It's Alison Ellis here of realflowerbusiness.com, coming at you live from my last November live stream. Answering your questions live. This is my thing that I'm doing for the next several weeks until Christmas time. So if you missed my little announcement, I made an event inviting you to come every Tuesday for a live stream with me. Just show up every Tuesday for a live stream with me. I'll be answering your questions live. The reason I'm doing this is because it's a really great time of year to like get cozy, right? Like light a candle, like I'm like all candles in my office and like feeling that end of year cozy vibe. But it's a really bad time to take your foot off the gas when it comes to your business. And that is annoying and very, very, very annoying to think about because you worked so hard all year and other people are taking off and they're vacationing and you're like, it's my time too, right? It's my time to do that too. Unfortunately, that's not true. As any business owner, right? But particularly as a florist, especially as a wedding florist, this is when your people want you, right? It's unfortunate but true. They want us on the holidays. They want to meet with us. They want to, they just got engaged maybe, and so they're all of a sudden starting to plan. They're not thinking about you and your holiday or your needs. They don't care, okay? They do not care. But what's important is that you have your own sort of boundaries and rules around what you do around holidays. I want you to enjoy your holidays. I am not telling anybody that you should work through your holidays. I just want to make sure that's clear. But it's not a time between now and the end of the year to go, I'm gonna just chill out. Things are gonna be what they are. And then in January, I'll take a look at what's happening, right? You cannot do that because you're gonna lose steps and you're gonna lose events because other people are gonna listen to my advice or they already know this and they're gonna be working and they're gonna be meeting and they're gonna be sending out proposals and they're gonna book those clients and they won't be there waiting for you in January, right? So just wanna make sure that I help you cross the finish line strong. It doesn't mean you have to be producing a ton of stuff or creating a ton of new content, although you should be creating some content for your blog, for your Instagram, for your wherever. But the real true reason why I want to do this every Tuesday is to pull you across the finish line, okay? So we're gonna stop on December 17th will be my last like scheduled Tuesday Q&A time. So you get a little break at the end of the year. But don't think about slowing down too much in your business. You can slow down your life. You know, the laundry can wait. You know, I was actually just talking about this with my husband. It's like the laundry can wait, but the business isn't going to be like waiting just as you left it if you ignore it. We were specifically talking about this around like when floralpreneurs will say like, oh, I'm having a baby and what should I do? And every now and again, I'll see, okay, I shouldn't say every now and again, almost always, there's someone who leaves the advice of like, enjoy that time with your babies, which by the way, is stellar advice. But then they'll say, your business will be waiting for you. It won't be. Okay, so I just want you to know that whether you're having a baby, whether you're having a month where you're like, yeah, you know, whatever, I worked hard all year. I'm taking this time to just not be focused. I have other things to do. Like it won't be waiting for you, okay? It owes you nothing. You are the curator, all right? So, all right, enough lecturing. Let me get to your questions, all right? I see people tuning in. Hello, hello. Hey, Victoria, good morning, Floral Business Guru. Oh, I thank you. Good morning to you. Kat, hey, Kat, yay, I didn't miss it this time. And Catherine says, bonjour, Alison. Hello, hello. All right, so the questions that I got this week that I thought were really, really worth addressing came from Brenda, Chantel, Elizabeth, and Erin. So Brenda asked about opening a flower shop when she just found out that another flower shop is probably going to be opening around the corner, like a mile and a half away. Chantel had a question that I think a lot of people have, which is about how do we communicate the difference between that $450 elevated centerpiece that we quoted and the like $150 elevated piece that another florist told them they could make them. So that's something that's a perpetual issue. So we're gonna address that one today too. Elizabeth is wondering about how you deal with unrealistic inquiries when you can tell they're unrealistic right out of the gate. So I am super passionate about that. Pre-qualifying, weeding out the the clients that are time suckers, like that is my jam. That is what I do. So we're going to talk about that. And then Erin asked a really good question, which is, it seems so simple, but it is a bigger question, which is when you're booking clients with bigger budgets, like $8,000 to $10,000, how much of a deposit do you take? So she says she usually takes 40%. And so we're going to talk about that too. So first I'm going to start, and of course, if you have questions, feel free to leave a question. Shelly says, found you. Yes, I'm right here. I'm not hiding from you, girl. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. So let's start with Brenda's question, because it was the first one that I pulled as like, this deserves a more fulsome answer. So here's her question. She says, I'm at a crossroads and need your expert thoughts. About to sign a lease for opening up a new shop when all of a sudden I get the news that another high-end shop will open within 1.5 miles from my intended location very soon. So she says, are there enough flowers to go around? Are typically shop owners willing to strategize and collaborate with competitors, or will it be a constant battle? I don't want to give up before I start, but should I simply move on by considering this big threat? This has been a business dream and passion of mine for over 10 years. Thanks in advance for your responses. They'll help me tremendously. So she got a lot of advice from y'all in the group. And a lot of the advice was very much on the like, go get them, tiger, right? Like you don't let this other person stop you. And I think that's very good advice, sort of. But there's a lot to this. This isn't just about flower shops, by the way. If you're like, well, I don't have a flower shop, I'm tuning out. No, this is literally for anybody who has a competitor, okay? This is for anybody who has any competitor in their market. So that's everybody. So this is for everybody. Here's the deal. Should you give up on your dream because somebody else, you heard a rumor, right? I heard a rumor, like that somebody's moving in. That person's not there yet, right? So maybe that rumor's true. Maybe a high-end florist is coming in. But my question to Brenda was, how do you know it's a high-end florist? Like, are they already established? How do you know this? And she said, well, it's like they said it. Well, listen, I can tell you that I'm a high-end florist, right? But that doesn't necessarily make it true. You can tell me that you're a luxury event designer, but that doesn't make it true. So people might want to be high-end, but that doesn't mean that the market supports them. It doesn't mean they're going to have more sales than you. Maybe they'll be a high-end shop, and you'll be whatever you are, right? And what you do is more sought out than what they do. So there's no one way to do this. There's no one right answer to go, well, so should you or shouldn't you? Well, here's the perfect answer. Marilyn had given you some good advice in the group saying that she presumed, which I would also presume, you've already done your numbers. You know what you can afford. You know what you can afford to lose. Because no matter what, right? Whether you're signing a lease or you're quitting your job to do your flowers full time from your basement or your garage or your kitchen, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. Most businesses fail, by the way. Most businesses fail within 3 to 5 years. So if you're in that, I've been in business for more than 5 years, I've been in business for 10 years, like you're above average, okay? You're doing great. You have to go into this being willing to fail. Now that's like, oh, but isn't that the wrong mindset? But it's the only mindset, right? You can go in with confidence. You can go in with a plan and knowing how much you're willing to lose and knowing what you think your sales are going to be. The question, are there enough flowers to go around? There are enough flowers to go around. Are there enough customers to go around, right? And that's what you need to know. You need to know who your customers are. And it's not always easy. Like, business is very much like a chicken and the egg thing, right? Like which comes first, great marketing or great customers? And everything just sort of moves in sync. You don't know how to market to great customers until you have great customers. And I think a lot of people in here can attest to that. Gosh, I'm going to forget who asked the question. Kim asked the question, like, hey, I really lowballed this quote. I really underestimated. Somebody asked about bud vases on a table. So she quoted them like a reasonable, very affordable price for that. And then she found out they had a way bigger budget and could spend way more and she could do all kinds of stuff. She was like, how did I get this so wrong, right? So I don't know specifically Kim's situation, but sometimes we just assume people are like the people we've worked with before, right? You go, well, somebody asked for a bud vase, that means they're cheap, right? Somebody asked for a table runner, so that means they have a big budget, right? Or they're unrealistic. Like we can categorize these things based on experience, right? So if you haven't worked with an ideal customer who's like, I just want bud vases, but I have a $250 per table centerpiece budget, right? Like you can do a lot more with that than $55. So once you get those ideal clients, it becomes easier to sell to them. Like the next time Kim has somebody say, hey, I'd like some bud vases, she will know that that doesn't necessarily mean they're looking to save money, right? So it's not until we experience something that we know how to handle it, okay? That's for better or worse, whether it comes to our marketing, finding our customers, whatever it is. So keep that in mind, Brenda. Whatever you do decide to do, you need to know within yourself that what you're doing could very likely fail. Very likely, okay? And you need to know how you're going to be okay with that if that happens. You're going to need to know how much you're going to go in for this thing before you decide, you know what, I love this, but it's not making money, right? Because that is what happens to not just florists, all kinds of business owners. They love what they're doing so much that even when they're not making money, they just keep doing it because they just can't admit that this isn't working, right? So you have to have some rules for yourself if you're going to be brave and sign the lease on that flower shop. Because by the way, that's brave. It's braver than me. I'm not brave enough to do that. That's not part of my goal, right? So you could say, oh, but it's not about bravery. It's not your goal. Still, it's a risk, right? And it's a risk I have never been willing to take because of how much I know it would control my life and how much I would need to dedicate to it and how much I would care about it and love it and want it to succeed. So I think that you can do this and succeed, but I don't know that because I don't know anything about where you're opening the shop, what the typical spend is in a flower shop or anything like that. But even if this other competitor comes in, it doesn't mean that they're going to be better than you. So you got to just be true to yourself. If you know, like I've been working on this for 10 years, I know what I want to do. I know who I'm going to sell to. I know what my price point is. I know where my sweet spot is going to be. And by the way, you could be wrong about some of those things or all of those things and then have to change your plan. But if you have an idea and a vision, why let the rumor of somebody else maybe doing something stop you from pursuing your dream? So as long as you've got the numbers will tell you the truth. And a really important little phrase that, is really worth just, again, no matter where you are in business, whether you're opening a shop or you are your own little home studio business like me, if you don't pay attention to what can put you out of business, it will, okay? If you don't pay attention to what's going to put you out of business, it will. So keep that in mind. It is not stupid to consider that this person could put you out of business, okay? It is not bad to consider that. It is smart to consider it. It doesn't mean it should stop you from doing what you want to do. It doesn't mean that, again, that the other person's going to be more successful than you, but it's important that you stopped and asked this question, Brenda, is this a good idea? Because if you don't pay attention to what can put you out of business, it will. Let the numbers guide you, not your fear, okay? I see a couple of comments coming in here, so I'm going to read them and then I'll get on to my next question from Chantel. Lori says, I live in a smaller town in the Pacific Northwest and there are 2 other flower shops besides ours. We all survive and have our niches. It can definitely work, but you will never know until you try. Yep, it's true. You will never know until you try. But to say it will definitely work, I have just worked at too many flower shops that did not make money to endorse that piece of your sentence. It can work. It could work. And if you're in a place where you have people who like mutually respect each other, like I will never forget working at the first flower shop where they helped other florists. And I was like, whoa, what is this craziness? This is not business. Business is like, I'll cut you at the throat, right? No, not true, it turns out. That's not what business is. Being a good neighbor to your, surrounding businesses is a really important thing. So Laura, you have an amazing thing that you've been able to do. And it's great, like if everyone has their niche, but sometimes you have a niche and then someone's like, yeah, I'm gonna make that my niche too, right? And then it's not so easy to be friends and be simpatico. All right, Shelly says, having enough money to start up is key. You need to not plan on making a profit for the first 3 to 5 years. Again, that's a tricky one. I know a lot of people say that, but I think in the floral design business, you should be able to make a profit because you shouldn't be just buying tons and tons of stuff, like lots and lots of inventory that just sits. You should be building slowly, right? So maybe you don't have a cooler full on your first day. Maybe you have a few really choice pieces that are nice and you start to get a sense of what people are coming in. What are they spending? What are they asking you for? It's been a year and a million years, right, since I've worked in an actual flower shop at this point. Maybe not a million years, but maybe over 20 though. I might be creeping up on that. No, that's probably not true. It's probably been about 18 years since I've worked in a flower shop. Sorry, my voice is getting froggy all of a sudden. But what people wanted were quick cash and carry things, Some people came in and yes, they ordered wedding flowers or bat mitzvahs and they did, things like that. But for the most part, people want to walk in and they want something quick and they want something made and they want it at a price point that's a no-brainer for them. And back then that meant $15 bouquets at the register. And, every now and again, we'd sell a $100 arrangement out of the cooler because at one of the last shops I worked for, well, yeah, not the last shop, the third to last shop I worked at, they had a high enough clientele. Now they also didn't make money, surprisingly, okay? But they had a high enough clientele that, I said, let's put a $100 arrangement in the cooler. I bet it will sell. And literally that day it sold. We didn't need to be trifling with $50 arrangements in the cooler. Like, we could put something more expensive and sell it. And not only did that person buy the $100 arrangement, she then booked an entire Christmas party, like thousands of dollars of decorating at the same day that she bought the thing. So, we need to get established a little bit before we know who our customers are, but you really should be able to turn a profit, like to go 3 to 5 years, without paying yourself, without making money in your business. Like, why, you know what I mean? Like, that's literally all I can say. I'm speechless over it. But you're right, Shelly, that is often what happens, is that people don't pay themselves and don't make money for 3 to 5 years. I just don't think it has to be that way if people have a really good plan and if you're really hustling and marketing and getting pre-orders into your business so you're not standing around wondering if anybody's going to come in today. All right, Victoria says, 1.5 miles is a long way. It could be the same block. Even still, I worked at 3 different shops, all within less than 1 mile of them was only 2 doors down from us. All of them were very successful. Girl, just do you. When I first started working in Vermont in flower shops, there were 2 shops on the same little walking pedestrian like mall. Both of them had alternative locations as well. So these were like satellite stores from bigger shops. And now there's no flower shops on Church Street at all. And I miss that. I wish that there were. Everybody's market is going to be different in terms of what they can support based on their population, based on their demographics and all that jazz that we know from business, just very basic business research, right? Okay. I'm going to move on to Chantel's question. Chantel says, how do we explain to brides that they are comparing apples to oranges when looking at quotes from multiple florists? She says, I do my best to give them visuals of what they will be getting. And then she gave an example of 2 arrangements. One, she's talking about elevated pieces specifically, one that was $450 and then another piece that was $250. So she had originally posted, that she saw the results of someone she had quoted, and the result was like not at all what the customer had originally come to her asking for. So this is like 2 questions in one to me. This is like, what should we be charging for elevated centerpieces as one piece of this? And then how do we explain the comparison pitfalls when people are price shopping? So let me just start with the elevated piece first. I don't think it's your job to make an elevated centerpiece that's affordable, okay? Like, just like it's not Mercedes's job to make an affordable minivan for me to deliver my flowers in, right? That's not their job. If I'm like, you know what I really want is a Mercedes, but I would like it to be in the $30,000 price range, right? That doesn't exist. So that is what your client is asking for. I want the elevated luxury look, but I would like to spend $150 per table for it. Not enough money, not gonna do it, okay? Not gonna do it. So that's our job, is to say, we're not gonna do it. And then when they say, well, somebody said they can do it. I talked to another florist who's gonna do it for $150. This is where you can choose now. Do you wanna educate them? Or are you ready to let them go because they don't get you, right? And it's gonna depend on where you are in your business as to what you wanna do. At this point in my business, for the most part, I'm gonna just be like, good, congratulations on that. Congratulations on finding that. But there's also a time in my business where I would say, if you wanna do that, that's fine. But I just wanna let you know, there's no way to make this look at that price. They might make you something that doesn't look like this at that price. So I don't know who you're talking to. I don't know what they're promising you. But I could never, just in all honesty, promise you this at this price. So I would just want to make sure you know what this costs from me with honesty. And then you move forward. If you want to do it cheaper, just be prepared. It may not be this. And maybe they've explained that to you and that you're fine with that. I can't do even a smaller version of this. Like, that's something that, again, we all have to learn at some point. There was a time where I would have told somebody I could do an elevated centerpiece for $150. There is a time, right, where I would have said that and I would have done it and it would have been like meh, right? Because I would have been all I could afford and I don't overfill. So they wouldn't have gotten a $250 arrangement for $150. They would have only gotten what they paid for. Now I know, because I've lived a life, right, and I've done these things, I know that I can't do that. And so the elevated centerpieces start at $350. So even Chantel used a $250 example. Even that is like a deal. That's like a deal to be like, I'm going to do this for you for $250, because there's transport that is involved in this. I've talked about this before with elevated pieces, so I'm not going to go too far down this road, but it's not just about the material that's in that big old ball, right? It's about the stress of planning it. Because even if you do tall arrangements all the time, there's a huge amount of effort that goes into delivering them. And you know you're coming back to pick them up. The customer has to be in it to win it with you for a minimum per piece, plus the breakdown and all that stuff. If they're not in it to win it for that price, they don't really want what they're telling you they want. What they want is to just be told yes. So if you have a customer who just wants to be told yes, and you're not able to do that, then they're not the right customer for you. But if you want a customer who wants to really know, and that's who my customer is. My customer is educated. My customer has a big jobby job and she is busy. So when I talk to her, she just wants me to shoot her straight. And if I say to her, listen, somebody said they can do that for $150, I wouldn't trust that you're going to get this picture for that. You're going to get something smaller for that. I'd want to know what the underneath is going to look like. Because here's again the piece from Chantel. And I feel bad that Chantel felt like maybe we called her out on sharing this post. I feel bad even just saying that. Now I feel like I'm calling her out. But she had a genuine question. Like, this is what this person wanted. This is what they got. What's the story here, right? And I agreed very much with Chantel's concern about this, because what the customer got were like exposed mechanics, right, on the base of the piece. So if you've got a $150 elevated piece because that's all they paid for and that's all you charge them, and I'm seeing all your mechanics on the bottom, that's a disaster. That's a disaster. I'm not going to even be nice about it and be like, it could be done better. No, that's wrong. We shouldn't be seeing your oasis and your stems and your liners and all that stuff. Like, that's not how that's supposed to be. So what got delivered was wrong. And that's why Chantel shared it in her original post, because what was delivered was like not correctly made as far as being a professional florist is concerned. So it's important for us to have standards, to uphold standards, and to understand that that person who got that subpar elevated piece at the price she was willing to pay may have been thrilled. She may have been absolutely thrilled because she doesn't even know that that shouldn't look like that. And it's tall and she got told yes, and that's all she cared about. Or she might have walked in there and been like, what the what? And really like ripped into that florist afterwards. And now that florist not only discounted their work and probably worked their butts off to make those pieces that still, and you know what else? I bet that florist didn't feel great about it either. They're going, oh, should we do this? Is this right? Should I do moss under here? What? Like, they had problems too. And hopefully they'll do a better job next time and they'll know we have to cover up these mechanics or we have to charge more, right? So just know that you didn't lose anything on that particular event there. That's really what I want to make sure you know. You didn't lose that customer. They weren't willing to pay you what it costs, and you're fully worth every penny that you charge. So just keep that in mind. And that's why we set a minimum, right? We set a minimum on those tall pieces so we don't have to wonder or worry. If the customer can't afford that, just not a good fit. Just not a good fit. Let's see. Okay, Hillary says, whenever anyone wants to talk to me about another florist pricing or anything like that, I don't get into it. I feel like it's a proxy argument with the client as the mediator, and it makes me feel icky. If someone wants me, so-and-so is doing such a great such and such for this price, I say, okay, great, I do it for this. Yeah, so if someone says, hey, so-and-so will do this for $1,500, or why is your quote $1,000 more than somebody else? Like, I don't know. I don't know what they're promising you. All I know is what I'm promising you. Like, that's it. All I know is what I'm going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. Chantel says, thanks for following up with my question. You're welcome. You're so welcome. It's a good one. And I hope you know that I like even the original one. It's a good question because it's something that tons of people struggle with. This, how do I quoted what they wanted. Someone else quoted them for less than what they wanted, and they didn't get what they wanted. And I can tell from just interacting with you here in the group, Chantel, that you're somebody who really cares about the client getting good stuff. And so when you're like, when you saw that, you were like, what the heck? This is not what this person wanted. So you're also feeling like defensive for the client. Like, you let this other person let this client down, right? Which may or may not be true. They may have been thrilled. They may have been like, you know what? I got those tall pieces and I, got it all for $2,000 or whatever. And, God bless them. God bless them all. All right, moving on to Elizabeth's question. Elizabeth says, hello, wondering how you all deal with inquiries that are unrealistic right out of the gate. Do you agree to meet, hoping you can make a connection and explain what they can afford? Or do you tell them candidly that they won't be able to get what they want in their budget before you even spend time talking with them? So she goes on to say, I'm finding it to be a tricky balancing act. And I don't want them to run away because I sometimes can upsell them, but I also don't want to waste my time. So that is exactly actually what I'm doing in my training over on Patreon. What I started, 3 really cool lessons that are waiting right there on Patreon right now. I'm going to keep on this track, pre-qualifying, right? That's what it is. I'm going to be continuing to talk about this in my Patreon group through April. So if this is seriously something you're struggling with, Elizabeth, or anybody else watching, there are strategies around this. There isn't one right answer. Some people will say, yes, tell them what the minimum is. Some people will say, yes, meet with them and bring them in and see if you can upsell them. But it depends on that person's personality. So without knowing exactly how you do things, Elizabeth, it's hard to be like, well, here's what you should do. But I really, and anybody who's in my Patreon platform can attest to this, like, I have a serious, actionable way that I handle these things that is easy for you to duplicate. Like, anything I teach, I like to make sure something you can do too. It's not like I'm the luxury florist who's like, and you can do this too, because not everybody can do that. But what I do is very, very easy for you to taper to your own standards. So for example, I pre-qualify. I pre-qualify everybody. So sounds like you did too, since you know that their budget is unrealistic. So then what do you do? Well, it depends. Do you want to, is it so unrealistic that educating is your only choice? Or is it like just a little bit unrealistic and maybe a conversation starts? I would never meet with them without a meeting of the minds on budget. I would do a phone consultation with them. And in fact, that's how I book all of my weddings. And again, something I break down in my Patreon training. So you can see exactly how I run a phone consultation, why I do that, and how it allows me to go from that initial inquiry to booking, you know, sometimes within 7 days, right? So you don't have to spend, I mean, it used to be like you'd be keeping track of a customer for like 3 weeks or a month because they inquired, then you scheduled a meeting, then you get your proposal out, and then you're waiting to hear back. Like now I go from that initial email to deposit within 10 to 14 days, right? So you can do that too. And it's all about like pre-qualifying and then getting a system, your sales system. So it just sounds like you need to get your sales system down because like you said, sometimes you can upsell them. So why would I say out of the gate, like, it's a no-go, hey, sorry, honey, this is unrealistic, right? And I'm sure you wouldn't word it like that. But, you know, if there's a chance, I can't tell you how many times I had a customer this year spend $5,000 more than her $5,000 budget, okay? So her $5,000 budget wasn't unrealistic, and then she kept adding on to it. $5,000 more, okay? So just keep that in mind. Like, even though somebody may have an unrealistic budget, it may be a no-go for you, or it may be a, oh, well, now that we've talked to you and we see how great you are and we understand what the price is, we'll pay it. And you've obviously experienced that, Elizabeth, because you said you've sometimes been able to get them to pay you more. But if you want to really dive deeper into, like, I take you super behind the scenes of like, you get to see my computer screen and what I do and what I said, and she said this and I said this. Like I take you through the pre-qualification and how I get them on the phone and all that stuff. So that's over on patreon.com. I'll share a link to that if you're interested. It's super worthwhile. It's a training like nothing I've ever done before, and it's cool. If I do say so myself, which I always do. Because if it's great and I don't tell you about it, I'm depriving you of the opportunity to get it. So there, Patreon might be the perfect place for you, Elizabeth. So yeah, you just need a system on that stuff. All right, I got a couple questions coming in. Tina, I ask my clients to give me the vision for their overall look, and I ask them to trust me to create something they'll love. I rarely ever have to get into a conversation about individual pieces. I've only been in business for 2 years, but so far, no unhappy brides. That's great, Tina. I wonder how many weddings you have done in the 2 years, if you don't mind telling us. The more you do it, and you'll find this too, there are ebbs and flows. I say this all the time. There's always an ebb and a flow. Sometimes you get super trusting clients that are like so low maintenance. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm like at a higher level now. And now the clients look at you differently and want different things. Someone just shared today, or maybe it was yesterday, oh, like I had this client and we had this whole thing and now she wants a whole new board and like, I don't have time for this. Like, that's just part of this. Par for the course is the client's going to change their mind. And in fact, I invite that. I end every single one of my consultations, again, on the phone. You can change anything about what we talked about today. Anything about it you can change. Maybe if they're getting married 6 months from now, they can't change anything about it. But I don't care if we talk about whites and greens and you choose purple. Like, we can change all of this stuff. I want my client to feel, much like you just said, Tina, they have a vision and then I'm gonna like execute it. And if their vision changes, now here's the thing, my clients don't really do that, but every now and again, they don't have that vision that you're talking about. They don't come with a vision. And they almost feel shame around that, right? Does anybody raise your hand if you've had a client who's almost like they're apologizing and like feeling shameful that they don't have a vision for their wedding? So I can't say to them, well, unless you give me pictures, I can't help you, right? So anyway, that is ideal, is what you're saying, is that they come to you with a few pictures and you're like, I can do this. Here's how much it's going to cost. But that's not the way most people are going to be able to work. It takes some time. So you've obviously got something figured out there, Tina. Good for you. All right, Katie says, I'm going to replay this video over and over until it's ingrained in my mind. And can you share your Patreon link? Yes, I can. It's patreon.com/realflowerbusiness. Yeah, but I'll also post a link. And let's see, Ellie. Hey, Ellie. Ellie says, sign up. This course is so thorough and you will have steps to follow and make actionable steps to make your process easy. Thanks, Ellie. Ellie and I actually just had a one-on-one call yesterday. She's been in business for 25 years. So, and that's what I was reflecting on this morning, because I've really enjoyed talking with you, Ellie, that I love talking with florists of all stages, but it's especially sacred sometimes to talk with somebody who's been in business as long as Ellie, because there are always more things to know and there's always a way to dive deeper. And sometimes we get tunnel vision where we're like just thinking floristry all the time, and we need to like branch out and think sales systems, right? Like streamlining. It can't just be about selling the flowers. That's really, really, really important. All right, Tina says about 60 maybe. So I said, okay, Tina, I was being a little bit of a smart ass. I'm sure some of you could sense that. Okay, Tina, tell me how many weddings you've done. 60 weddings in 2 years? That's amazing. So you got something figured out. She says, I don't try to stretch budgets much though, to be honest. Well, look, you obviously got it, girl. You got some magic there. Because if you got 2 years in business and 60 weddings, like, holler at you. That's amazing. All right, I'm going to move on to Erin's question. All right, Erin says, so here's the one about the deposits and like when you get a bigger budget, what should you do? Again, this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. So the question is, when you're booking clients like a year out with budgets that are 8,000 to 10,000 or higher, do you still take a 40% deposit, or would you take less, or would you round it out? She says 40% is what I normally take. I've only recently been getting clients with bigger budgets, whoop whoop. So first, congrats on the clients that are having bigger budgets. It's always like, feels especially like satisfying when you don't have to stretch a budget, like Tina said there. Truly, it's like, it's a special thing when you actually have enough money to work with. I still don't take that for granted. I never ever take for granted, excuse me, I don't know why I'm froggy today. I never ever take for granted that, you know, this $150 centerpiece, or, you know, when someone has $350 for their bridal bouquet or is spending $150 on their bridesmaids bouquets, I don't take for granted that I used to have to charge a whole lot less just to get a customer to agree to work with me, you know? So I think it's good to appreciate that kind of stuff. So as far as the deposit goes, this, again, no one single answer, because it depends on you and your money shoes, okay? So for some people, they can take that deposit and be fine when it comes time for the wedding. For other people, they maybe live off their deposits, which isn't necessarily right to do, and maybe not even legal to do. Your deposits should be, you should have your deposits. They should be someplace. You shouldn't be living off your deposits, right? So if you are someone who does that, because people do it, then when it comes time to buy the flowers, right? Again, you should still have enough money to buy your flowers, but I know there are just some people who don't have a good cash flow management. That's what I'm getting at here. You need to know about your cash flow management abilities. And so if you can take a big deposit and still have enough money later in the game, then you can go and take whatever you want for your deposit. A lot of people do 50%. You could just set a flat fee. You could just say, okay, if you have an $8,000 wedding, I take a $2,000 deposit. Or if you have a $10,000 wedding, I take a $3,000 deposit. You can set the rules however you want. It doesn't have to be percentage based. In fact, and this is something I've talked about in the past as well, I don't do my deposits as a percentage because I don't like getting the client too hung up on where we're ending. I don't want them thinking too much about how much the final bill is. I want to give them a quote for what they asked for and ask for a deposit that's reasonable for me. And then we'll worry about what this turns out to be in the end, right? We'll worry about if you want to add $5,000 onto this later, no problem, okay? Some people like to do three payments. So maybe if it's a bigger wedding, you do a $3,000 deposit, then a $3,000 payment, and then a final $4,000 payment 4 weeks before the wedding. So this is a choose your own adventure situation. One thing I like to keep in mind, my main thing that I keep in mind when I ask for a deposit on any wedding, no matter how big it is, no matter how small it is, I have to be comfortable keeping that deposit if the customer comes to me and cancels, okay? That is of utmost importance to me. I learned, and just briefly, it happened to me once where I booked a client, so easy, on the phone, bing, bang, boom, booked. Month later, wedding's off. It was like totally the fastest cancellation I've ever had in my life. I just gave her money back. It was a $1,200 deposit. I had done nothing. I also, coincidentally, I already had a wedding that day. I was losing nothing. I was out nothing. And I could have kept that $1,200 because that's what my contract says. But that's not right in my heart. I didn't need to do that to this girl. I didn't need to keep her money. I don't need that money. That's not my money. I didn't earn that money. We didn't meet. I didn't give you a Saturday. I didn't, like I always say, I didn't clean my bathroom for you. You didn't come here and have a consultation. We talked on the phone. I sent a quote. She accepted it. She sent a check. So I sent it back, right? I knew at that point I couldn't keep, I think it was $1,200. I might be misremembering now, but I was like, I can't keep $1,200 when I've done nothing. It's not even like I held this date for 8 months for this person or something. There was no reason for it. So just whatever you keep, make sure you're comfortable keeping if there's a cancellation. That's my personal experience. All right, Nancy. Hey, Nancy. Nancy says, hi, Allison. How do you relay to a potential client in a nice way that if price is ultimately their deciding factor, I am not the designer for them, and that I will not be put into a price match with other designers in my area? All right, that's a great one. It's really as simple as one sentence, which is, I know that I am not the cheapest florist. Okay, it's not necessarily a full sentence. It could be the beginning of a sentence. You can go in, you can expand on that. I'm sure you can find someone who'll do this cheaper, or I know I'm not the cheapest florist, but I know I will deliver the best quality, right? But that little phrase or sentence, however you want to use it in your own world, is how I do it. I know I'm not the cheapest. Like Mercedes knows they're not the cheapest, right? Like I'm just not going to be somebody who gets into, again, that apples and oranges thing. Oh, well, they could do it cheaper. Well, I could do it cheaper too. It's like, I'm not the cheapest. That, like, wear it as a badge of honor, you know? That's my simplest answer for you. Victoria says, same here. I don't want to give clients something they don't really want. It's their money and their party. They should get what they want. But that means I have to let them know it's okay to make adjustments. However, I have a deadline for these types of changes, 45 to 30 days before the wedding. Yeah, I like to ask them to make changes like a month before the wedding. I think I have 35 days in my contract, but again, it's up to me to follow up with them to get those changes. So, you know, sometimes that's what florists do. They run their business like they're a credit card company, like as if the client should just know that the payment's due. Yep, they know. They're part of my contract. They know. It's up to us to bill them. Again, sorry about my voice today, guys. I don't know what's going on. It's up to us to bill them. It's up to us to say, it's time for your final changes, or it's too late for final changes, or, okay, I'll make these changes, but it's going to take me 5 hours to do this, and that's going to be $500, or whatever it is that's your cup of tea and your brand for how you handle these sorts of things. All right, Amanda says, I would love to hear if you have any advice on marketing for daily deliveries. I'm pretty good on weddings and events. I really would love my dailies to become a bigger percentage of my business as a goal for next year. That's hard. That's tricky. It's definitely easier to market to specific events and niches than just anybody sending flowers in my area today, right? So getting found on Google would be a thing. Blogging about it, sharing, like, here's what I have for delivery today, or targeting specific businesses that you know send daily deliveries. Places where you want to deliver to, making sure that, like, people know to refer you so that you can deliver flowers there, whether that's, again, like, whether that's the local hospital or funeral homes or whatever. If there's a place where flowers get delivered often, how do you get on the referral list so people know that that's where you're going? Or even more specifically, I'm just using the hospital because I just am. If you're going to deliver to the hospital, you blog or you write or you tag like that you deliver to that area or to that hospital or whatever, so that people know when they Google who delivers flowers to that hospital, you show up. So it takes work to do it, and it's not just like anybody delivering flowers in this area. You still want to be targeted with like, what are you offering? What do your dailies look like? How much do they cost? What's the minimum? You know, like what are some parameters around those dailies so that you can communicate what it is that you're selling? Let me know if that is at all helpful or just sounded like gobbledygook. All right, Tina says, thanks so much for doing this. I'm so glad I happened on this morning. I'm so glad you did too. All right, there's Tasha. Always makes my day. How sad for the couple. All right, Tina says, I get $500 to hold the date, and it must be paid in full 6 weeks prior, and I don't spend a dime on their wedding if I'm not paid in full. Yep, exactly right. I don't spend any money. This goes back to that beginning question of like, you could go 3 to 5 years without making money. That the reason why that's so hard for me to wrap my head around is because as a home studio business, I make money every time. And I say this all the time, like when I was a wee babe and I had one wedding, I made money off my one wedding. When I had just a few weekly accounts, I made money on the weekly accounts. So whatever it is, you know, you shouldn't have money going out until money is coming in. So Victoria says, I lowered my 35% deposit to 15 to 25%. 35 felt excessive to me. There you go. Tina says, usually they pay me in thirds. And let's see. She also says, my florist bestie puts arrangements on her story and always sells them. That, you know, sometimes people just get like a little thing going, right? Amanda says, yes, thank you. Okay, I'm glad I answered your question. Like if you can have a thing where people know to show up and look for it, like every day in my story, here's what's available today. You got to order it by noon or order it by 11 for delivery by 2, you know, like whatever it is, you know, get a little swagger going that makes it exciting or interesting to get those dailies going. And Tracy says, hey there, glad I didn't miss you this morning. Me too, Tracy. Thanks so much for tuning in. All right, if anybody has any other questions, well, now is your time. But I'll be back on next Tuesday. So if I missed you this week, I'll get you next week. I'm keeping monitoring the group for things that I know are not like one-off answers, that are things that I know like more people are struggling with or wondering about. So that's where I'm getting these questions from, if anybody is unsure about that. And I'll keep monitoring the group and get some more questions lined up for next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is going to be, what time did I decide? I already posted it in the group. Next Tuesday is going to be 1 p.m. instead of 11 a.m. because I got a massage in the morning. That's why. But then the next 2 Tuesdays we'll be back at 11 a.m. again, because it seems like a really good time for most people on all coasts and continents at this point. Monday is Cyber Monday, and so I'm going to do a Cyber Monday sale because that's like what you do apparently. And but I'll share details on that, and you'll have like Monday and Tuesday to buy. I won't only have it 24 hours, so I'll post it here in the group. If you're on my email list, you'll learn about that too, and I'm going to have like $20 off some of my wedding templates for people who need to step up this pre-qualification or getting the contract done or any of that kind of stuff that I'm always talking about. Again, I'm going to post a link here for Patreon, which is where I do this training that is brandy new. You can sign up and get all 3 of the videos from November, and then I'm going to be doing a video a month through April. There'll be lessons. It's not like this, by the way. You're not going to just see me talking. They're like, you're getting a look behind the scenes at how I run my business. And if I get 100 people to join me there, I'm going to do 2 lessons a month. It's so hard for me to not just want to do the 2 lessons a month because I really got a lot to share. And there's some great specific questions from the Patreon members about like taking this further, how to present the proposal even further than I take you in my proposal template in terms of like different options. So I got all kinds of stuff lined up for you, and I can't wait to share. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll post on the Cyber Monday sale on Monday. More questions for me anytime. I'll make sure I pull out some of the best ones for next Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching, and happy Thanksgiving if you're in the US, and happy Thanksgiving if you're not in the US. Happy Thursday to you. Whatever you're doing on Thursday, I hope it's happy, even if you're not celebrating Thanksgiving. All right, thank you guys so much. I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss any other questions. And oh wait, hold on, I see one from Tina. Anticipating trends is what I'm curious about. I want to buy a frame for a half moon arch, but not sure it will be popular next season. Yeah, I don't buy anything, so this is a good question. I don't buy anything unless it's already sold, kind of like you already said. So unless somebody orders it, I'm not buying it. I didn't buy an arbor until I had somebody who was willing to pay for it. Like, I don't do it unless you have someone who's willing to pay for it. And then they should pay for it in full so that you're not sitting on like inventory that you couldn't pay for. So that would be my bit. Trends are super hard to predict because trends depend on where you are, you know? Sometimes a trend is a trend somewhere and it's old news someplace else. So the best thing to do is just keep a pulse on what your customers are asking you for, and then make sure you have things to offer them that line up with that. All right, Sandra says, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Sandra. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate your time, spending this time with me, and I hope to see you next Tuesday. Okay, bye-bye. Keep doing beautiful work.